ReZero Arc 9, Chapter 50, A Decisive Battle on Ice. Unlike the chapter name, this wasn't actually very decisive, as it was mostly an action-oriented chapter. Still, as is typical of Arc 9 fights, this one was very entertaining and completely crazy to read, so let's get right into it. The chapter starts with the aftermath of the Volcanica fight, and Ezzo is just crying with emotion at the monumental achievement that he and Roswaal just did. And to be quite honest, I totally understand Ezzo, because me personally, after I bust a huge load with the boys, I usually also cry with emotion. It's just something that comes to me, you know? The great thing about this channel is that this channel is incredibly niche, and so I am nowhere near popular enough to be clipped out of context, so I can just say whatever I want, okay? So you guys can enjoy it as well. So either way, Ezzo and Roswaal bust a huge load on Volcanica, which, with the help of Clind, managed to defeat the mighty dragon. And this moment was incredibly cathartic, and this aftermath, although also a bit emotional, obviously with the tears and whatnot, and Roswaal giving a bit of an emotional speech revealing that he may be becoming a bit softer than he was previously, especially much softer than he was and as his villainous self all the way back in Arc 4. This aftermath was relatively uneventful. We didn't get any particular lore drops or any new information that we didn't have before. The main takeaway here is that both Roswaal and Ezzo are very tired from the huge load they just bust, and so they won't be able to continue Al busting, and so it is very likely that they will be on the bench for a while. They will not take part in whatever climactic event is going to happen in front of the geyser at the next volume, and so maybe Clind, because he can clearly fly, maybe he can get there fast enough to participate in whatever is going to happen, but Roswaal and Ezzo are out for the time being. I also want to highlight this particular line where Roswaal comments that Clind has changed as a person, and Clind replies with the exact same back. It seems that Roswaal is changing, and it is not clear to me yet if this will actually be a meaningful change for his character, if this was a bit of a one-time thing, or if it will fundamentally change the way that Roswaal sees the world from now on, because I think it is inevitable, it is a matter of time before Echidna is reintroduced back into the story, and I think Roswaal's reaction to that will greatly affect the Emilia camp and the story moving forward. To me personally, I think that Roswaal will always be the clown pervert himself, somebody who is more willing to use underhanded tactics, somebody who fights more dirty, and you almost need that in the Emilia camp because you have so many softies and you need people like Roswaal, like Otto, who are a bit more pragmatic, a bit willing to go the extra length to do what is needed, to do what is perhaps sometimes morally questionable. And I think that Roswaal will not do a 360 on his character. He won't completely change into a goody two-shoes like Emilia is, for example. I think he's way too jaded and cynical for that, but I think this may be the beginning of a character progression for him that may be incredibly rewarding for those of us who have followed him all the way since Arc 2. Up next, we have the Battle of the Waifus, Emilia and Rem versus Yae, and I don't know, it's supposed to indicate here on this diagram that Emilia and Rem are on the same side versus Yae, but because of the poses and whatnot, it seems like Emilia is reaching her left hand where perhaps she shouldn't, or perhaps she should, and Yae is just appreciating this incredible display that they're having. Either way, I can't be serious. Reviewer mode, activate. Emilia and Rem are tasked with the toughest challenge in the Al busting, which is busting Al himself, as Al is a nightmare matchup for anyone not named Reinhardt. And Rom says that to beat Al, you have to overwhelm him with the unexpected, which he definitely chose the right people for it, more on that in a second, but I don't think that is necessarily the best tactic against Al. And I think we have seen the blueprint to beat Al already multiple times in Arc 9. To beat Al, you have to corner him into a situation that is inescapable no matter how many times he resets. The main two examples of this was number one, Ezzo. He figured it out right away once he understood Al's ability. He used that huge area of effect water spell which overwhelmed the entire room, leaving Al with no escape no matter what he did to try and dodge or counter the spell. That was genius, and you could argue that Al really only won because of plot armor, because he managed to yeet his own notebook against Volcanica and he managed to escape the situation that way. But that was very smart, and also Rom when he managed to corner Al with Volcanica's own spell. That was also brilliant. If the objective was simply to eliminate Al, I think the best plan with the resources we have available would be something like using Clind to distract Volcanica. He doesn't need to defeat him by himself, he only needs to distract him for long enough, and then, for example, Roswaal could just shower the location that Al is in with just a huge rain of fire spells, so much fire magic that Al could not escape or retreat in any way, or he could not evade it, and so no matter how many times he reset, he would just be gone. So I think that would be the best tactic. Obviously, that would require actually eliminating Al. I think they want him alive, and also it is also unclear what would happen to the Pokeball inside of Al that contains Subaru and Beatrice. Would that be burned as well? So obviously, a lot of questions there, but I do think that to beat Al, the easiest way would be something like that, to just put him in a situation where you have this sort of huge area of effect spell that he cannot escape in any way, because at the end of the day, yes, he may be able to reset infinite times, but he's still just Al. He's just a dude with one arm and not very athletic one at that. Having said all that, I think for this particular task, I think Emilia and Rem are definitely the right two people for the job, because Emilia, as we've seen highlighted ever since Arc 8, she is very much an instinctual type, and this isn't something that's super talked about in ReZero necessarily, but in other series like Kingdom, for example, this is very relevant, where you have a huge distinction between the more brainy types and the more instinctual types, and Emilia is very much an instinctual type. We all know she's not the brightest, okay? And some people may find it endearing, some people may find it annoying, some people may find it endearing or annoying, depending on the situation, like myself, for example. I think the author does push it a bit too much sometimes, but either way, she's very much someone who acts and relies on instinct. And by not having a set plan against Al, by being able to react on the fly, that is the best possible type of person you can have against him. And the same thing largely applies to Rem. Although she has been shown to be actually quite intelligent at various points in the series, she also has her own particular personality and her own character flaws. And one of them that's been highlighted ever since Arc 2, she is very emotional and very impulsive and prone to make rash decisions. Obviously in Arc 2, some of her decisions were questionable. Thankfully Subaru is also a maniac himself and he didn't really harbor any rancor towards Rem. But the thing about Rem is that once she sets her mind into something, she will just push forward until she gets it. And we've seen this multiple times, and the same thing with Emilia. Emilia and Rem are just fighting Yae until they beat her and they manage to defeat Al and save Subaru, and they care about nothing else. And some of the subtle fighting tactics that Yae employs, like the use of bluffing, for example. I loved this one particular passage where Yae was overwhelmed, but she acted calm. And usually this would make the other person hesitate, like, what does she know that I don't? Am I falling into a trap here? But both Emilia and Rem, they do not care whatsoever. They are super aggro, they do not think about things too deeply, they just act on instinct and they will attack until they win. And these two maniacs are the perfect ladies for the job. Speaking of the fight itself, this is some of the most fun and creative and chaotic fights that Tappei has written in the entire series, and somehow he keeps one-upping himself every time in Arc 9. I don't know how he does it, I don't know how we're going to end up if we're going to be fighting in space or whatever is happening, but this fight is completely crazy. So they are fighting on a disc made of ice, and at one point Yae, if I'm not misremembering, makes the disc spin horizontally to throw Rem and Emilia off balance, but then they stomp on it, making the disc spin vertically as well. So it's spinning vertically and horizontally at the same time, and as a ReZero fan, I'm having a lot of fun reading this, but a part of me is thinking, how the hell are they going to animate this? Because with a fight like this will either look super janky and super awkward and stilted with the animation, or it will be some of the most peak godlike performances of animation that we will ever see in our times. And I honestly think there is no in between, because this scene is just so chaotic and so complex to even just demonstrate on a visual level to make sure the audience keeps track of what's actually happening. I think this will be either very bad or very good, but let's see. Hopefully one day we'll get there. And yes, I know it is very typical of a ReZero fan to worry about the anime even before we get there. The discussions surrounding Season 4 have been very peculiar, to say the least, but that's a conversation for another video. But either way, I hope one day we get there, and I hope I am still alive to see it, because at the current pace the anime is in, this will take a while. Besides the geometry class that you will have to take to read this and actually understand what's going on, the fight in itself is also very busy but has incredible moments of choreography. At one point Yae is doing a cartwheel to dodge some strikes, we have swords flying around, steel threads, Rem is going crazy with her Morning Star, she's even using it in ways she hadn't necessarily used it before, like at one point she just grabs it like a gauntlet and starts punching with it. This fight is just very fun to read. I also love the sort of parallel of ice versus fire. We had ice and fire collaborating with each other back in Arc 7, with Priscilla and Emilia fighting together against Madeline, and now we have someone from the Al camp, but not Priscilla. We have Yae, somebody that instead of loving Al, somebody who hates and is fearful of Al, and this time fire and ice are not fighting together, they're fighting against each other, and these sort of small thematic nods are just so cool to me, and these parallels between Priscilla and Yae are also super engaging and really make me fall in love with the story even more. This fight also had a few moments that really made me laugh in a good way, like how goofy the Subaru ice clones are, and Emilia and Rem just freaking out about them even though they're just ice clones, but they can't help because they're so similar to Subaru, they can't help but react emotionally, and because they are idealized by Emilia, they are super realistic to what the actual Subaru would do, and his dorky Subaruisms, like when one of the clones saves Rem and then gives a thumbs up, and it's all so dorky, but it fits them all so well, and I really like the interaction between all of these three characters. Even if Subaru isn't present, as in actually present, he's still just looming over the story, and I think that's super cool. And let's not forget, we have a literal EMT. I repeat, a literal Emilia-tan Maji Tenshi. She is a literal angel with wings of ice, and the wings, once again, they can't actually flap, so she just glides slowly through the air, and it will look super dorky but super cool at the same time in typical Emilia fashion, and also in typical Subaru fashion because it was likely his idea, and it is another one of those things. I know it will take a very long while for the animation if we ever get there, but at least the light novel, I hope we have some artwork for this because I think it will look super cool. Rem also has a lot of highlights in this fight, and one of them may go unnoticed, but I think this is a JoJo reference. She at one point does the flurry of punches, and obviously she doesn't do the iconic but she does just a generic or however you're supposed to voice act that particular line there. But either way, I think it's a reference. In my mind, I sort of imagined Star Platinum, but instead of Star Platinum, just Rem, just going with a flurry of punches. I thought it was fun. Not sure if it's a reference, but just something that made me chuckle. Once again, my criticisms from previously keep being addressed. The growth that Rem had in Arc 7 and Arc 8, the entire Volcanica saga, is still relevant for her character. She hasn't reset back to Arc 3 and completely forgotten that entire very long adventure, and I like that her interactions with Priscilla and the things she learned in Volcanica are still relevant. Obviously, I've also commented many times that Priscilla's coaching is totally fake. She is one of those motivational gurus that just says platitudes, but she says so with such confidence that it sort of awakens a new idea in you, but it's not really that the knowledge itself is super valuable, it's just that the confidence in the coaching helps you unblock some mental barriers that you had. So Priscilla would be a guru for sure, she would be a great one, she would just say, hey, just lock in, just win, and people would, yes, Priscilla, yes, of course. How could I not see it before? But either way, Priscilla's coaching, without really knowing anything about magic, somehow helped Rem control her magic and her mana and her Oni characteristics much better, which, hey, I won't question it because once again, it's Priscilla. She can do whatever she wants. I also keep enjoying Yae's character a lot. She is a great parallel to Rem. They are both attracted to their respective versions of Subaru, obviously the original Subaru and the one-arm Echidna clone, whatever's going on there, Subaru. And while Rem is attracted to Subaru because of love, Yae is attracted to Al because of fear, because of the dread he fills her with. She can't just leave him alone, she has to see this to the end, and it's almost the opposite emotions in the spectrum, and it's super cool to see. And Yae is full of contradictions, and at one point you even start wondering if the fear that Yae feels isn't a sort of positive emotion just masked with Yae's own twisted personality. Maybe there's genuine love there. It remains to be seen, but either way, in the middle of all of this, the fight is super peak as well, with Yae fighting with the steel threads and doing everything she can against the tag team of Emilia and Rem, who are pretty tough on their own. And I love the sort of mini flashback we have at Olbart, which essentially boils down to try your hardest, do your best, but always cheat. And that's definitely something that Olbart would teach. And so the chapter ends in a quite anticlimactic way, as we don't actually get a resolution to this incredible fight, but we instead get Al's grand escape. It is not EMT, it is AMT, as Al copies Emilia's wings made of ice and makes some wings made of rock, which makes sense as he is also Subaru. He has about the same information. For him to visualize and create these objects, it should be very easy, and instead of using ice, he uses stone. So it makes sense. And so Al is gliding away slowly, and Emilia is on the chase, also gliding away slowly, and they are so close to the geyser, or the geyser, I should have checked that. Either way, the geyser, I think it's geyser. They are so close to the geyser that at this point I can't help but wonder, isn't Al's victory just assured because he's just so close to it? What is he going to do? Does he just need to just burp Subaru and Beatrice and just yeet him into the void? What is he actually going to do? They are so close. So once again, this chapter ends on a major cliffhanger that leaves me hungry for more Arc 9 chapters. And this was it, the first ReZero web novel chapter review on the channel. Just so you're aware, I will always wait for the Witch Cult translation to come out first before I do a chapter review, because I really don't want to use machine translations, as sometimes there's a bit of nuance lost, and I don't want to misinterpret things and then just spread misinformation on the internet, and the ReZero community already has way too much disinformation, wrong takes on things. They don't need any more, so I won't be contributing to it. So if you enjoyed this, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, your thoughts in the comments, and you can even join now if you want some ReZero emotes. And there's not too many emotes yet because there's not many members, but yeah, it will get better in the future, hopefully. Haha. Anyway, see you in the next video. Ciao.